was not fun. So, what's your question?
What made you interested in the whole topic of refugees and what made you write a book about them?
Yeah, so the whole book is not about refugees. It's mostly about how to work better in places that cause refugees. So I'm really most interested in war and in what extremes people will go to try to solve a problem through violence, and how do we stop it. So that's really, I consider myself a peace builder, and even since I was a little kid in school in Spain, I was the only American in the school, I kind of liked in the playground that I could be a peace builder, you know, because I had a little bit of standing being the only American. That was kind of cool, because they were all Spanish kids, and I could keep people from fighting each other, and I could, some of the bullying and stuff I could stop, and I just loved it. So I now get to do it, and people pay me. It doesn't get any better than that, so that's you know, that's a big part of it. All right, and don't hesitate to come back and ask more questions if you like. Yes.
Is America, like, or any other countries making any progress towards making environments better for refugees?
Yeah, really good question. So the United States has historically been the world's leader in a couple of ways in refugee issues. We're the number one, and still are the number one funder of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, which is the organization that is responsible for making sure that refugees are safe and protected anywhere in the world. So we give more money to that than anybody else. But we don't take as many refugees as many other people. So there are some people, like the Pakistanis, who take lots of refugees, because guess who's their neighbor? Who's right next door that's pouring a lot of refugees into Pakistan? Syria? Some, but we're a closer neighbor. Afghanistan, yeah. Who said that? Yeah, good. So Afghanistan. So they're coming from Afghanistan, they just pour into Pakistan, because many of the same people, same religion, they're pretty comfortable there. And historically, Pakistan has been a welcoming place for them. But the United States helps to pay for them while they're in Pakistan. Partially because, guess what? We don't want them to come here. So it's not all that we're just great. We are generous, but we also sometimes are calculated. And so it's a balance. But the United States has helped to create the refugee conventions, the rules. We are always there to make sure that the rules are developed. We're a leader in the space, but right now in particular we're not, because we don't even take the resettled refugees. We always were number one in resettlement. Resettlement means taking refugees that have already gone to one country, but they haven't found a permanent home, and they come to the United States for their permanent home. And we only took at our peak, we were taking about 75,000 a year, which doesn't sound, that would be sort of like the crowd that's at the Seahawks football game. There'd be that many people, but they're spread out all over the country. So you can imagine, if you took 75,000 people, you spread them out in a country of 300 million, what does that look like? Not too much, right? So let me give you some. This is a country of 6 million, that has about 2 million refugees in it, and the United States has got 300 million plus, and we take, we probably have in our country now, we're talking about 75,000 a year. That's now, I think this administration has brought it down to 15,000. What's the number this year? Or is it?
They want to take it down to 30.
30? So we're taking it down to 30,000. So look at this ratio, 300 million, 30,000, 6 million. What country do you think this is? It's near Syria. It's a small country near Syria.
Starts with them.
Huh?
Give it.
Lebanon. Who said that? Yeah, Lebanon. So Lebanon, you think this causes a problem? Yeah, so the equivalent number here in the United States would be we're taking 150 million or 120, 100 million. Right? Yeah.
I'm just wondering about this. Does Lebanon have a choice though? Do the refugees go there? We look at that.
Because you have a porous border, and but they do push some back, obviously. but it's not a great choice.
Yeah, right.
Yes. It takes a lot of infrastructure to do that. Okay, so who's got, let's go over to this side of the room for a question. Yes?
So agricultural countries you went to, which one do you think is doing first in like,
Well, probably the ones that are doing worse are the ones that are creating a lot of refugees on a daily basis. So who would you put near the top of the pile? Who is creating, currently creating lots of refugees? Who do you think?
maybe like Syria?
Yeah, I think that's a good guess. Do you hear the answer? That would be my answer. The people in Yemen don't have that, really, again, they're kind of boxed in by geography. But Syria, they've been able to go just in every direction at the moment. But again, they're getting Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, I mean, pretty much filled up. It's hard to take that many people. Okay, you have a question?
What was your main reason for writing?
My main reason was that I felt that if people really cared about these issues in America, that we could actually be a world leader in building peace. But we got to care about it. Now, what keeps you from caring about this? For example? I'm just assuming you kind of care, but you may care about a lot of other things more. Is that fair? Kind of? Or this is at the top of your care list? Oh, good. Okay. So why do you care about it?
I don't know, I just feel like it's like the world needs to just, live as one. Just why it happens, war and stuff,
Yeah. So a really important work. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the hardest things about writing the book was coming up with a title. I thought writing the book was hard, and it was, because I'm kind of an extrovert, and I had to sit in a room by myself for a year. So that got a little, but then coming up with a title was really hard. And the subtitle, I actually love this word unifying. So it's America's unifying role in a turbulent world. But unifying was one of the last words I came up with, and I thought, I really like that for exactly the reason that you stated. Yes.
Was there like a single experience, in a class or a person that most motivated you for your work and stuff?
It's really interesting. Well, obviously my parents had a big influence on me, and my brothers, because we were Americans just living in the place. So that was. I had a great boss. When I went to work when I came from Maine to Washington, I was about 45 years old, and so I was starting in this stuff a little bit late in life, really. And I had a great boss who had actually been the Deputy High Commissioner of Refugees before I became it, but I was working for him in Washington. And he said something that I just loved. He said when he was working with the refugees, he would sit down with his boss every night, and those are the days at the end of the workday they'd have a drink. Today, you don't really have a drink at the end of the workday with your boss in the office. But they would sit down, and the one thing that his boss would say to him, and he said to us was, "Douglas, have we saved a life today?" We got 70 million people on here. Have we saved a life today? I always thought that was really good, because it comes down to, are you really making a difference in a single person's life? You can always talk about the entirety of humanity, but if you're not even saving one life, you're probably not measuring that. So that's inspired me a lot, because I love the people side of this work. It's very, very, very real. It's raw, it's real, it's dramatic, but it's also very basic and important. So all those things really came through that boss type staff. So that's a good experience. You've already got it, so I'll come back to you now. Yes?
So, one of your main roles is war-related military invasions, right? But is there ever a time where you think it's absolutely necessary for a military invasion in order to effect change, or is there a way?
I do. I'm not a pacifist, which means that I would be against the use of violence to solve problems. I do think you oftentimes need it, because I happen to think that there are some actors that that's all they understand, and you cannot convince them any other way. So I'm comfortable with it. I just think we overuse it, because it's something that we've developed quite well. So we have the world's strongest military, and it's a good standby capacity. It's there, it's waiting. So one of the problems that you have as the President of the United States is when you call the State Department and say, I got a problem in the place, and they say, gee, I can only get you 2 diplomats in about 3 months. You don't feel like you're being able to respond to it. You call the Pentagon and they say, well, I can get 5,000 soldiers on it in a couple of days. And you think you got more capacity. In the United Nations, they don't have a standing military, right? So in the United Nations, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, we were the strongest operator in the UN system. So when the Secretary General of the UN would call around and say, I need to do something in Bosnia, UNHCR was the one that could say, I can get 100 people on this case tomorrow. And so the Secretary General turned to UNHCR more often, a humanitarian agency. So part of it is having standing capacity and ability to solve problems. And that's one reason we over-rely, I think we over-rely on the military. It's not that the military is dying for these assignments. In fact, they know if they do these assignments, quite a few of them are going to die. They don't like that. So that oftentimes the military is offering real resistance to being told by civilians to go into a place. That's a bit of a surprise to people. People think the military is always just looking for, hey, where's my next war? They know they're going to die, and so they're not looking for their next war. They're really quite thoughtful about it, which makes sense, right? Yes.
What's the next since your job you have been working with these standards there?
I'm sorry, just because the pitch of your voice catches me right where I can't hear you. So,
Well, is there a place that you think the U.S.'s military involvement actually
hindered or helped the situation? Just hindered.
Just hindered it, or if you
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the way we've decided to deal with the Afghanistan problem has been overly militarized. So it's a 17-year war. It's America's longest war. And if I asked all of you in the room, is that America's most important war? Would you say, probably not? Would anybody think, so why have we been there forever? Well, partially because we keep coming up with 1-year plans. So a lot of people say that the 17-year war in Afghanistan has been 17 one-year wars. Oof. That doesn't work too well. So I think that's the case. And I think even Iraq was overly militarized as well. So we didn't have a plan for winning the peace. We just fought this elaborate war, but we didn't have a plan for winning the peace. Now, that's not the military's fault necessarily, but that should be part of any equation. Does that answer your question? I think we can come up with others. I'm not convinced that what we're doing in northern Syria now is a couple thousand U.S. soldiers, lots of bombing. I think we just sort of got into it. It's just, yes.
What place outside of the United States, or is there some that you visit outside of the United States that's had the most impact on your life personally? For your work?
Yeah. Well, I would say one that really had a huge impact on me was Haiti. Country, not a single person as much, but because it was the first place I really got to try some experiments and some different things to see if you could build peace in a place. And I found they worked in Haiti's an extremely poor country. Not that violent, but it has outbreaks of violence. Usually controlled, organized violence by whoever's running the place. And I just felt that we came up with great ways of getting the communities involved in Haiti. And it worked. So it then influenced my work in all the other places. So that's probably the most influential because it was first and I really had the test, it was my test tube. Yes.
What can the U.S. do to stop using military innovations so much?
Well, I think one answer, did you all hear that? One thing would be to have just be much more capable on the civilian side. So here's a question that I've asked some audiences, and I'll ask you. Okay, we'll do a little survey here. If I gave you a choice of spending $500 million on a brand new embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, a huge new U.S. embassy in Iraq, or spend $500 million to train and prepare only 500 Americans, $1 million per American is the tuition, to learn to speak the language and to be capable of operating in the country. I'm going to give you that choice, okay? So you got, on one hand, you got the new embassy, that's $500 million, okay? And then the other, you got 500 of these guys, that's also $500 million, who are going to be totally capable of working in a place like Iraq. Okay, so here's the poll. You're going to have to vote for, how many people vote for the new embassy? How many people vote for the new embassy? How many people vote for the 500 Americans who could actually operate the place? And how many don't want to vote at all? Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, so let me answer, this is rhetorical, right? So let me get to my point. Because it's a rhetorical poll. Guess which one we did? Which one do you think we did as a country? We built the embassy? That's correct. We built the embassy. Now this is what we did. And guess what? There's more bad news here. How much do you think this $500 million embassy cost by the time we finished?
A lot more than 500 million.
700 million.
Oh.
So
Guys.
that's a bit, but okay, so I don't want to depress you, but I want to encourage you, these are the kinds of things you have to care about. Because if you don't care about them, I can assure you your Congress people don't care about it. If your Congress people don't care about it, then stupid things keep happening. So these are why it pays to be involved. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the embassy costs 500 million, but I mean, in order for an embassy to be fully functioning and working, there needs to be like trained people that can operate in the embassy. So how much would training those people cost? Or are they pre-existing?
So that's why I think $1 million per person is about what it costs. What do you think it costs us on average to have a soldier in a place like Afghanistan for a year?
For a year?
Not just the soldier, but just having the soldier there. It means all the stuff that you gotta get around the soldier. It's about $1 million a year now. And then, I mean, a direct cost would be like 250 million or something, but it's about $1 million a year by the time you get them the super weaponry and the other things they need. So we're spending that kind of money, but on the civilian side, to answer the earlier question, we're not, to answer, I think it was your question, wasn't it? We're not doing this particularly well. So we have shortages of civilians who can operate in almost any place. So this building then becomes, what is this big building? Who fills this building? A whole bunch of security people to keep this one guy safe. I mean, it's not a good model. It's something we could change really quite easily if we cared about it. But I don't think most of us walking around caring about it or knowing about it. Yes?
Do we ever have a chance of world peace, or do you think we'd be far gone?
I think we do. I think it's the state that by far most people want to live in. I mean, if I give you a choice of war or peace, how many people here prefer war? Anybody? Okay, well, so,
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say both.
but just to tell you, again, just to give you a sense of how warped this conversation can get, have you ever heard of the United States Institute of Peace? Have you heard of the United States Institute of Peace? Well, your tax dollars pay for it, but not many of your tax dollars, because it's $35 million a year. 35 million. How much do you think the Pentagon is about? 800 billion? Okay, 800 billion, 35 million. Very small amount. Now, the woman who runs that place told me a few weeks ago, she said she meets with members of Congress who say, I like what you're doing, but I don't like your name. And she goes through the name. It's the United States Institute of Peace. She says, I don't think they dislike the name United States. That seems about right. And I don't think they have any objection to the word institute. So some people don't like the word peace. Now, when I was writing this book, people told me I would sell many more copies of the book if it featured conflict, war, or blood, as opposed to peace. Okay. More people will read it because it's a lot more interesting, right? I mean, how what could be more boring than peace? Okay, but I decided I like the word peace, so that's why it's my book. I'm going to call it what I want. But anyway, if we have such a basic misunderstanding of peace, why would people object to the word peace, do you think? Because it reminds them of some other things. Do you have an idea?
It kind of reminds them of like a life that doesn't have any like major events that's really interesting. It's kind of just like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I think the people who think they're peaceniks and they're people who anti-war activities, I mean, they thought peace was associated with that. I think peace is really hard work. It's much harder work than war. Getting into wars like this, building peace is hard work. It's going to need all of you, which is why I'm happy to be here. All right. So, you've been very patient, but so you get as many questions as you want.
Oh, wait, so I can ask?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Other than like the financial logistics, like, you know how like if you're driving by, there's always like land that no one's been using, and how come we're only bringing in 30,000 refugees if we already have so much space here, other than like financial?
Okay, so there's a good question. Anybody got an answer? Do you have an answer? Yeah, throw out give us an answer. See what you can answer.
Well, it's not just, I would say it's not just being schools, like,
Okay, so to take some in your, you need more than just a man.
also, we talked about this a little bit, if America starts taking in more refugees,
So you start, if you start down that slippery path, you could get really ugly. When was the last huge influx of refugees into the United States? Huge, like a million, 2 million. There's probably a community of these people right here in Seattle. Huh?
My neighbor.
Your neighbor?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah. No, not really. Yeah. Go ahead, what was your guess? You can only be, it's okay if you're wrong, because I'm not giving any grades. No idea? Okay. Well, think about it. We'll come back to you. Okay, so what about, does anybody know of Vietnamese refugees? Is there anybody, are there any full restaurants around here?
Yeah.
Who runs them? Okay, so Vietnamese, we took, I think it was 2 million, but I'm sure less than that. 2 million Vietnamese refugees. Okay, who's got, how are we doing in time?
We got about 15 minutes.
Okay, so we have a few more questions. Who hasn't asked a question yet? Have we got a question? You had a question already? Well, we can come back to you if you want to think about it.
What's your biggest takeaway
What was my biggest takeaway from my work as an ambassador? So just one job, just one job. That the United States still has the most sought after opinion in most groups. Now that doesn't mean we don't waste the time. But people want to know what the United States thinks most of the time. So it's a big advantage. I mean, the rest of the people say, who cares what that country says? So you really got to take it responsible. Does that answer your question? That's the first choice, yeah. Is your second question? Who hasn't even gotten a first question yet? You guys had your first question yet? Okay, so can I come back to you? Let me come back to you. Will you come up with your questions? Because I don't remember answering your questions. Okay. Who else has a question?
So you said in your book you have many stories about refugees and war. So what is your favorite story?
I got a lot of favorites. But I told you this, the Nigerian movie, the television story. Is that the last class? Well, you won't get there now, I just told her. You know, I'll tell you, let me think about one that I haven't told yet today. Let me tell you one that's kind of a favorite of mine. So, I've got a basic rule that the first mistake, the biggest mistake that we make when we start in a country is we don't know what's going on. And that if you don't know what's going on, then how likely are you to be successful in interpreting what's going on in the place, right? But most people walk into the country and they say, I know why these people are fighting. It's the tall people who don't like the short people or whatever it happens to be. And then that becomes the argument for the war. So, my very, very first time that I went into a war zone was in Bosnia. Has anybody heard of Bosnia? So I went into, and I had a wonderful young woman translator. But like a lot of people in the Balkans, which is that area of the world, she's very literal. So if I said, what's it like in the front lines? We will go to the front line tomorrow. What are young people doing for fun? We will go to the rhythmic gymnastics class tomorrow. So whatever I said, so I said to her, why would anybody want to have a kid during a war, this war? She said, we will go to the maternity ward tomorrow. So poof, there I was in the maternity ward the next day. And being a socialist state and very few doctors there, they showed us where the prosthetics and everything else, and then they said, oh good, we understand you want to interview a woman who's having a baby, so we'll take you to the maternity ward. Well, the doctor walked me right into a delivery room. There was literally a woman having a baby, and I've got my little yellow legal pad, and it's like, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I had seen my wife, I had seen the state my wife was in when we had her daughter like 5 years before, and I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to interview this woman. This is not going to work. So I said to him, no, there's got to be somebody else I can talk to, please. So he then took me to a waiting room where there were 5 women waiting to go into delivery. And their husbands were right outside a window like this, smoking cigarettes and whatnot, out in the lobby. And I interviewed them. But the reason I tell the story is that you've got to go to great lengths to figure out what's going on in a place before you can give any help to it. And if you don't take the time to do that, don't send American soldiers who don't do any of this stuff. So that's why that story means a lot. Okay, who is still? Yes, sir.
What place is doing best in terms of like either taking in refugees or creating them, and how can the rest of the world try to be like?
So what was the first part of the question? Of taking in or
like creating refugees or taking them in?
And then so what's the sharpen the question?
Like how can the rest of the world try and be like those places?
Well, many of those places did not choose to be that way.
Yeah.
So, for example, most of Europe is really not very good at taking in refugees. The Germans have gotten much better in Bosnia or in Syria. But the Scandinavian countries or the Japanese that are big contributors to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they don't take many refugees. They like to give money and keep the problem over there. So the countries that have taken them generally are not that happy taking them, but they're fulfilling their responsibilities. I've got Bluetooth and it comes into my hearing aids. So it's kind of crazy. So in terms of lessons, the lesson that I would say, live by the rules that you signed up for. And all those European countries and the United States and all, we've actually been the ones that have promulgated those rules. We created rules, but we don't like it when these people show up on our coast. And we're perfectly happy to help pay for them as long as they're somewhere else. So I would say live by the rules. That's one of the really good lessons. And if you don't like those rules, change them. But as long as they're there, you got to live by it.
I was just going to insert this. Who's the leader of Germany? Does anybody know right now?
Yes. Merkel, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so she's one of the driving forces behind Germany's more, I would say, liberal policy towards refugees, and today she announced she was going to run again, so anyway, that indicates a different, could indicate a different policy.
Most countries, by the way, are really nervous about strangers in their midst. I mean, it's not unique to the United States or Norway. It's true in Pakistan. It's true in other places. So it's not like, I can't think of a society that is just like, oh, bring us your tired and your, that idea is a bit mythical, but it's a good idea. Because we're not going to be over it. I mean, the number of people that are moving around the world right now is probably at an all-time high. Not just refugees, but migrants, lots of economic migrants. All right, so who's got, you have questions? Is there anything we can do to help? Oh, the students? Thank you. Good question. Yes. And I would say, I mean, right away, showing that you care, because there's a feeling that a lot of Americans just don't care about this stuff, despite your classmate here. Our good citizen model. I think there's a feeling that the majority of Americans have just gotten tired of this stuff. And I mean, the reality is it's not that tired. Has it exhausted any of you? You think it's exhausted any of your families? Not really. It's not causing that much. So caring is number one, and one way you need to express caring is through the political process. Are people saying things that are just inflammatory or bullying on these issues, or are they being thoughtful, constructive, and they coming up with ideas of how to solve these problems? So you have an opinion about that stuff. So care about it and tell people what you think. I'll tell you, if you probably said to if you go home tonight and you say to your parents, I think I care more about this refugee issue than I did 4 hours ago. They'd probably say, why? There would be an initial conversation going on, right? And they might ask you why you care about it. And they would then be kind of curious as to why you cared about it. And that would be conceivably helpful as they think about voting or paying taxes or other things. Because guess what? To have a country like this working, we got to do those things. I mean, voting is that's just an entry ticket to being a good citizen, right? So I think your citizenship really matters. Now, you can also do things if you don't want to touch the American political system, which I would say you better touch it, because otherwise it's not going to work as well as you'd like it to. You can always just do nice things for people that are suffering, because they're